Well, y'all, my camera cut off with me and I didn't know it. But I'm here making old-fashioned biscuits. And I used about 2.5 cups of flour. I put in about a tablespoon of Crisco. Worked it in my flour. I put in about a half a teaspoon of sugar. I put in about a half a package of rapid rise instant yeast. And I'm trying to get my biscuits made. I mean, I was working away and all of a sudden the camera cut off and it said I can't use the camera because of the storage. I had too much stored in my camera. So I had to stop and get rid of some stuff off the camera. But this is the old-timey way of making a biscuit. You just roll it in your hand. That's the way my grandmother always made them. Pinch off a little bit. Roll it in your hand till it's a smooth ball. And put it in your pan, and you can't see what I'm doing. Move the camera over here so you can see. But see, I already had some biscuits in my pan and my camera cut off, and it didn't save anything that I recorded up to then. So I apologize for that. I'll have to do another video on biscuits, I guess. But I think you saw me make them where I rolled them out and cut them out with a glass, I think. That's what my mom always used. She had the right size glass that was just right to cut biscuits. I think I'm going to have 3 more here. Yeah, the cards are just not with me today. I've been trying to do videos and my camera's not cooperated with me. This is only the 3rd time I've started to do a video. But now if you have a bigger family and you need a great big old pan of biscuit, you might need 3 or 4 cups of flour or more. Like I said, I only used 2.5 cups. And that's given me 12 medium-sized biscuits. Oh. Now I had my oven preheating at 425. And I did grease my pan with a little bit of Crisco. In the olden days, they just used lard right from their hogs when they butchered hogs. I don't have lard, so I use Crisco. Or you can use butter. It's up to you. Now, what I'm going to do is put my biscuits in the oven. And it's only going to take them maybe 10-15 minutes to cook. Just watch them because it's not really timed. Watch your biscuits, and when they start to brown and they rise up, you know they're done. So we're going to put them in our 450 oven. While I get my kitchen back to normal. So now I'll go over the ingredients again. To make the small pan of biscuit, all I used was about 2.5 cups of flour. I used a good heaping tablespoon of Crisco, worked it in. I put in about 1/2 package of yeast, because I like to put yeast. I never did before. I mean, growing up and all through my years of making homemade biscuits, I never put yeast in them. But I found I like them better if I put a little bit of yeast. And you don't have to go through all the rising and kneading and all that stuff. But it makes a little bit of difference in your dough when you put a little bit of yeast in there. Now, when I was first started making biscuits, I put my flour, my self-rising flour. I put my Crisco or my lard or my butter, whichever I wanted to use. You can certainly use butter instead of Crisco. And that's basically it. I used either milk or lukewarm water. I mean, if you're using milk, try to have it at room temperature so you're not making your dough really cold. But you can use either milk or lukewarm water to make a regular homemade biscuit. Just mix it together, you know, your Crisco, mix it into your flour, add your milk or your water, whichever you're going to do, make your dough. Knead it just a little bit until you get it to a doughy consistency to where you can work with it, like I did, you know, pinching it off and making your little biscuits. And a old-fashioned country homemade biscuit is so easy to make. You don't have to let it rise. You don't have to let it set for an hour. Just mix it up, make your dough, pinch off your little biscuits, make your little balls and flatten them and make your biscuits, put them in the pan, pop them in the oven for anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes and you've got a homemade biscuit. That's the way my mom did it. That's the way my grandmother did it. But like I said, my mom did roll hers out. She liked to cut them with a glass. I never usually did that. I just pinched it off, rolled it in my hand, and then put it in the pan. I found it to be easier that way. And it is hot, y'all. We were supposed to have that storm that came through. And all it did, it got a little dark here at one time today. Just a little dark. It rained just a tiny bit, just enough that there was water dripping off the porch top. It rained just enough to get the ground a little damp, and then it just blew over. So we could use some rain. I mean, we're supposed to get maybe another chance later tonight and tomorrow morning, which I hope we do, because we do need the rain. But like I said, it doesn't take long to cook them. Just put them in there and leave them. Cook them. It's anywhere from about 10 to 12 to 15 minutes to get your biscuits cooked. I'm getting over here to get me a stick of butter, because you know I like to put some butter on the top of mine when they come out of the oven. But yeah, you know, years ago, women worked in the fields, the planting, they canned, they did so much. But they fixed biscuits just about every single meal, or some kind of bread, cornbread, biscuits, some kind of a fritter, but they had bread every meal. And my grandmother always made homemade biscuits. And she had such a large family, she made a big old long sheet of biscuit, not no little bitty pan like I've got. Her sheet would have made 4 or 5 of my little pans. Because, you know, when you got a big family, you got to have some bread. But I remember she'd make those biscuits. Didn't take her long. Man, those were the best biscuits I'd ever eaten in my life. They were better than McDonald's. I fixed a pan of biscuit the other day when my son was over here, and I don't think he believed they were homemade biscuits. I think he thought they were canned biscuits. And my daughter-in-law says, no, those are not canned biscuits. I can tell the difference with the taste. That's not a canned biscuit. I said, no, they're not canned biscuits. I didn't make canned biscuits. Those are homemade biscuits. So, I hate to cut the camera off, because by the time I get it off and get situated, I'll be turning it back on to show you my finished biscuits. And I'm sweating. Ooh, it's hot in here. I'd refuse to turn my AC on yet. But yeah, I think I've told that story many times before, that how good my grandmother's biscuits, homemade biscuits, were. They were country biscuits, mine, and I'm telling you, they were good. Now, my other grandmother, who lived in New York, she was a good cook too. But she didn't cook country, she cooked city. There's a little difference, but it was good. So my mom, she made a little bit of both. You know, she'd cook country and she'd cook city, and it was just a combination of both. And then having the Italian background, partly, that made it even better. I had my exhaust fan on to pull the hot air out, but I don't like to run it when I got the camera on, because it makes too much racket and people complain about it. Yeah, I can't believe my camera cut off with me. But I had to turn it off. I had to go into device care and delete out a bunch of files to where it gave me enough memory to where I could go ahead and video. And by that time, I had already started putting my biscuit in the pan, and I thought it would have at least saved what it filmed up to then, but it didn't. It didn't even save the beginning of the video. So I will have to apologize for that. But again, all I did was take 2.5 cups of self-rising flour. I had lukewarm water, tap water. And, you know, I had quite a bit in the little cup, but I didn't use it all. You just add a little as you need it until you get the dough the consistency that you want it. I put the Crisco, the tablespoon, big heaping tablespoon of Crisco in my flour. and mixed all that up with the water and the flour. And like I said, I like to put yeast in my biscuit. Just the instant yeast, so I don't have to wait for it to rise or anything. I just mix it up in there just like I do the regular biscuits and make my biscuits, put them in the pan and put them in the oven. And it makes a difference because they come out with a little bit of a different texture and a little bit different taste. But you can do it either way. You can do it with or without the yeast. You can even put an egg in it if you want. You don't have to. The old-timey way to make homemade biscuits was just flour, shortening, milk, or water. Mix it up, make your biscuits, and bake them. And that was it. Real simple. But you know me, I don't usually stick with recipes. I kind of turn it into my own recipe after a while. Go through trial and error, and if it works, then I continue doing it. And I kind of like it the way it turns out with a little bit of yeast and maybe put one egg in your biscuit. Let me check on them over here. Whew, I don't know how long they've been in there. I lost track of time. Lost track of time. Yeah, but they're rising up and they're starting to get brown. It'll be just a little bit longer. Whew. And I'm going to have me some good homemade biscuits here in a minute. If you want to just go ahead and do it the way I did it with the egg and the yeast, I used 2.5 cups of flour, about 1.5 tablespoons of Crisco. I used 1 package of instant dry yeast. I used 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. I used just enough lukewarm water to mix up my dough and make my biscuit, and that was it. And I've got my sticks of butter that I'm going to melt on the top of my biscuit when I get them out of the oven. Because I like to run the butter over the top to keep them soft. And it gives them a good taste too. It gives them that buttery taste. Whew. I think summer is upon us, y'all. Yeah, I said, what else is going to go wrong with my videoing today? The first video I made messed up. I had to start over. And then, like I said, I started over. It was filming fine. And then about the time I got my dough all mixed up and was making my biscuit, the camera cut off and it didn't save anything. That truck goes by every once in a while about this time. It's some kind of Mexican food truck or something. I have no idea. They probably got a little bit of everything that they sell in it. Yeah, but you know, years ago they couldn't run to the store and buy a loaf of bread. They had to make their own biscuit. Or they had to make their own loaves of bread. Or they made cornbread cakes or hush puppies or cornbread fritters and that type of thing. There was no bakery down the street. You couldn't just run down there and buy a loaf of bread. Now, granted, in the Western days, when like the gold rush times, you know, when they set up little towns and stores and shops, they had what they could call like a bakery. But their bread and everything was basically like you would fix at home. It was the old-timey loaf of bread that wasn't even sliced. It was old-fashioned biscuit, cornbread, stuff like that. It wasn't the sliced bread in the bags that we go to the store and buy today. And you didn't have your choice on these different styles of breads. I mean, they had a few, but you know, it was just all the old timey stuff. They didn't have what we have today. And it was usually baked fresh every day because it didn't last. I mean, you cooked it one day, you sold it, they ate it, and they come back the next day maybe to get some more. Yep-a-roo, they're just about done. It doesn't take long to cook a biscuit. Does not take long at all. Looking to see if I could see any of my hummingbirds out there. They're back, and I cleaned the hummingbird feeders out today and hung them back up and put out some more nectar for them. And I figured since it wasn't storming and the wind wasn't blowing and the sun's down a little, they would be at the feeders. And whenever you put them in the pan, if you're not ready to bake them right then, just leave them sitting on top of your counter. And they'll rise a little bit before you ever put them in the oven. And sometimes they turn out a little bit better that way. See, I didn't wait this time for them to rise. I just mixed them up, made the biscuit, and put them in the oven. But it'll work either way. Which, you know, if you got time, let them sit there for 15 to 20 minutes. If not, put them in the oven. I think they are done, y'all. I don't want them real brown. And I think they're brown enough. Got this little piece of butter that I had from last time. hot on your fingers. Now I'm going to see if I can get one of them out of there. And get it in my plate. Right there. Woo! Hot, hot, hot. I knew that little piece of butter was left there for some reason. Put it right in that biscuit. And let it melt. There you go. There's a homemade biscuit. Didn't have to cut it out. Didn't have to do anything to it, but let it. Just mix it up. Make your biscuit. Put it in the pan. Put it in the oven and bake it. I could have let them brown just a little bit more, but they're fine like they are. But there you go, y'all. Oh, my homemade biscuits. It's too hot to bite. Look at that. That is good, y'all. Make you some homemade biscuits. Put you some jelly in one of them. They're real good with jelly. Get you a cup of coffee. Put you some butter and some jelly in a biscuit. It's real good. Talk to you later. Bye.